You're listening to Mountain Heartbeat with Joe and Rosa Hopkins, proclaiming the gospel through word and through song.
Hi, and welcome to Mountain Heartbeat. I'm Joe Hopkins. This week, Rosa will be continuing her interview with Jill Marquis, the Mobile Unit Coordinator for the Charlotte Pregnancy Resource Center.
Journey since then as well.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely amazing, because I'm sure, and you say that you bought into the lie that your growing child was just a clump of cells, and that is one lie, obviously. And then there's another lie that once you've had an abortion, or if you ever had one before you were Christian or after, either way, that there's no hope for that. There's no redemption for that. And there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of, from the people I've spoken to, they've said that there's and you just mentioned it as well, that you fear that people will judge you and kick you out because you've done the worst thing, and there's no hope for that. Whereas the gospel says, well, I should say that rather in the Bible, the prodigal son, after he's wasted his father's inheritance, he's squandered it, he's gone out and done all these things, he comes home, his father runs to meet him. His father welcomes his children home, and it's the same. And that Jesus forgives entirely. That's the gospel. That's the good news. If it's not for people who've done wrong, then who's it for? He came to save the righteous, right? No, it says he came to save those that need a savior. And so that's a very powerful thing. And so that he's using you. And I agree with your pastor that you would be the one to help women out of what they find themselves in the aftermath of dealing with the abortion. And so you find yourself on the front lines every day. And I really wonder what, almost like if I could be a fly on the wall and see what that's like. Do you ever see things that go against what most of us would expect? I mean, a lot of us have an idea of who would come to have an abortion, but I'm sure that's very different in real life from what the idea is that most of us have about what that would look like.
It is very different. Abortion is an equal opportunity offender. It crosses every demographic. You can see someone pulling up to the clinic in an extremely nice car, followed by somebody who is walking because she took the bus, and she got off the bus and is now walking down to the clinic. And so it runs the gamut. I will tell you that abortion disproportionately affects the African American community. About 60% of the clients that we see are African American, and that our statistics follow the national statistics in terms of demographic breakdown. She is 18 to 24. Again, about 60% African American, 20 to 25% Hispanic, and then Caucasian. And it's, but again, I watched a Maserati sports car with two beautiful young women pull into that clinic. I mean, a Maserati. And I thought, wow, you're driving that kind of car, and you're coming to this place, which is, you could afford to have this done in your doctor's office, and yet you're coming to this place. And you see everything from women who are married and already have children, to college girls, to high school girls. And, it's all of us. And anybody who thinks that abortion only affects a certain population is completely wrong. 4 in 10 women of childbearing age have experienced an abortion in the United States. And 75% of those women self-identify as being either Christian or Catholic. So we're saying that we believe in God. And, and the reality is, we're sitting next to you in church. We're standing on the soccer field with you. We're behind you in the line at the Walmart. We're everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you had mentioned earlier that you offer support, and I imagine that that would be different depending on the circumstances, because for some, the support might have to be financial, right? They might need clothes for their child, they might need formula, etc., those kinds of things. And I'm curious about what support you offer for those that need those more obvious things. But what about the woman driving the Maserati? I mean, what kind of resources and support do you offer to those women?
Okay, that's going to be a two-part answer. The first part is going to be those clients who are in need of some type of financial or material support. The first thing that we do is anybody that we see on our mobile unit, we offer her a car seat. This is something that a local church has provided for us. We call it the To Be Continued card. And we tell that client, we know that your story doesn't end here. It's to be continued. And we believe in tangible help. And this is the first step in tangible help for you. That being said, depending on the woman's circumstances, we're going to individualize what we can do for her with a pregnancy resource center. So our job is to connect her with local resources. And we can do that by helping connect her with the different areas of social services. We can connect her with area churches that partner with us. Just to give you an example of one of the things that happened with one of my clients, this particular woman came to us. She had been in the clinic, walked out of the clinic, came down to see us, and said that she was homeless. This is a woman who had a good job and through a series of circumstances ended up homeless. She has children that, she has twins that are 5 years old, and she was unpacking her story to us that she was homeless. And so in that moment, I'm like, okay, let me get on the phone to my boss and see what we can do. Well, she had been in the clinic. She had had an ultrasound, and she paid $185. The first thing that my boss said was, we're going to make her whole. We're going to get that money for her with no problem. Not meaning we were going to go into the clinic and get that money. We have churches that are so generous and say, absolutely, we're not going to. She's not going to walk away from there being out any money. So that was an easy fix right there. And then as we started working with her and really understanding the situation that she was in, I'm telling my bosses, she's homeless. She's going to need help just getting into an apartment or into a house. And again, my executive director is making phone calls to our partner churches saying this is what we think we're going to need in terms of financial resources. And we had two churches say, absolutely, we've got it covered. And it did take several months for that particular story to play out. But when she was ready to move into the house, those partner churches said, we've got it covered, and we were able to provide that for her. So that's one way where we would provide, a financial need, a material need. But for that woman whose need is not a material need, we know with all of our clients that she's lacking leadership in her life. The first place she's lacking leadership is the Lord's leadership. And then the people of influence in her life are not leading her in the right way. So another client of mine was coming from a very, middle class background. The situation with the father of the baby had fallen apart, and hers was not a financial need. Hers was an emotional and a spiritual need. And so it turned out that this particular woman lived in the same area that I lived in. In fact, she had visited my church. And so I kept speaking with her about, come to church with me. I will meet you. My husband and I are going to be at church on, this service time, this day. Come and meet me. And while that did not happen, she and I were able to continue to talk about what was happening in her life. And I had the opportunity time and time again to pray with her and to point her to Scripture and to say, we've made a really difficult choice in saying yes to this pregnancy. God is going to honor that. And through the course of her pregnancy, the Lord did absolutely provide for her. She ended up getting a promotion that made it so that she had better working hours. And even though the situation with the father of the baby is still not great, I know that God is working in both of their lives. And for her, it was just that ongoing emotional support to say, I am here for you. I'm going to be here and I'm going to walk this path with you. So it just depends on the client as to what it is she needs. Sometimes we will, the individual counselor, like I was the counselor in those two situations, where I continue the relationship with the client, or where I might be able to hand the client off to one of our partner churches, so that she can be loved on and discipled by, the church that's right there in her neighborhood.
Oh yeah, no, that is very insightful to basically, as you're saying, to tailor the help to what the person needs, because they're not all the same. And so, what would you say to somebody who's living, for example, this radio show would air in Huntington, West Virginia. Are there resources available for somebody who is in a crisis pregnancy, depending on if they're living in a state other than North Carolina?
Absolutely. There are over 1,500 pregnancy care centers or crisis pregnancy centers throughout the United States. I would say to somebody who's listening, if this is you, if you're facing an unplanned pregnancy and you are in panic mode, I want you to Google Pregnancy Care Center, and it should give you a list right there in your area. The other place I would say is that if you have a church that you've gone to once or twice or maybe more, reach out to that church and to say, most churches have some type of community care or counselor on their staff, and that church is going to be able to come alongside you and help you walk through this.
Absolutely. To be the hands and feet of Jesus. Absolutely. And if there were somebody in our listening audience today that...
Thank you for joining us this week on Mountain Heartbeat. You can hear the rest of this interview next week on same channel, same time, or you can find this and other fine programs on SoundCloud or on YouTube.com. Just search for Joe and Rosa Hopkins. You can find more of Rosa's blog on lifeinsidethehouseontherock.com, or you can find us on joeandrosahopkins.com. We'd love it if you joined us again next week on Mountain Heartbeat. Certainly, we could use your support, and we'd love for you to listen in, learn more about abortion ministries and pregnancy ministries and how we can keep those hearts beating here in West Virginia. Thank you very much, and we'll hear from you again next week.